All right, welcome back to the deep dive.
Hey there.
Today we are diving into some really powerful and pretty unsettling source material.
Yeah, we're looking at verbatim courtroom testimony. It's from a high-profile federal trial involving Sean Diddy Combs, and this comes via inner-city press reporting.
And the scene this source paints,
Mm-hmm.
it's incredibly vivid and tense.
Seriously, you got to picture the courtroom, right? Already charged, everyone's waiting, and then the doors open.
And in walks Britney Spears. Completely unexpected.
Yeah, flanked by federal marshals, just boom.
According to the report, the whole room just sort of froze.
Mm-hmm.
Reporters stopped typing.
Mm-hmm.
A juror apparently gasped out loud. Even the judge, they said, kind of shifted in his seat.
And Diddy himself, sitting there at the defense table, the report described him looking up with maybe a flicker, maybe even dread. Hard to say exactly, but a reaction.
Just her presence alone, and the composure she apparently had, even though her hands were shaking a bit, according to the source, it just set this incredible tone.
She hadn't spoken publicly like this in ages. The transcript actually quotes her saying something like, "I've been silent for years, but I saw things, I know things, and I can't carry them anymore."
Wow. Okay. So our mission for you in this deep dive is, well, it's to pull out the most important details, the key insights from this really surprising testimony.
We're going to walk you through the story she told, the narrative she laid out. Following that thread, she started to unravel, bit by bit.
And it's really crucial to keep in mind as we go through this. What we're talking about here is a testimony given under oath in court.
Exactly. These are the specific claims made by this witness as reported in our source.
Yeah.
Our job here is just to understand what was actually said.
What events, what evidence was described specifically in this source material?
Right.
Okay, let's unpack it then. She starts way back, the beginning of her connection with Sean Combs.
According to her testimony, this was 2003. She was 21.
Coming off the success of In the Zone, right?
Yeah, and she said she was focused on, international pop dominance, her words.
And Combs, even back then,
Yeah.
he was presented as this huge figure, almost untouchable.
Oh, yeah. A major mogul already. Bad Boy Records was massive. The testimony described people seeing him as, inevitable in the industry.
Not just successful, but inevitable.
Yeah.
That's intense.
Right. She met him through a mutual exec, someone named Devin at Arista Records.
And her first impressions?
She testified he was charming, very generous, apparently told her she reminded him of a young Madonna, but with more fire.
And she said that detail stuck with her.
Yeah. He talked about big ideas, cross-branding, Bad Boy going global, maybe building twin empires together.
It sounds appealing, especially if you're young and ambitious.
Totally. She admitted she wanted to believe it, but she also testified that even then, something felt a little off.
Off how?
Like everything around him felt staged. That was the word she used.
Interesting. So one of the first invites she mentioned was a party.
At his studio, 44th and 8th. She remembered the smell so vividly. Yeah, leather, expensive cologne, and these sweet candles. Always candles, she said. She even named the brand Diptyque Bois.
Wow, specific.
And she said that scent, quote, still haunts her, which tells you something right there.
Yeah, definitely. So she felt this weird energy early on, but kind of ignored it.
Right, she said you learn to do that in the business. But then came this pivotal night. Early 2004,
Okay.
after a Clive Davis party, she gets invited to Combs' Manhattan penthouse, Central Park West, for a supposed creative circle.
Supposed, okay.
Yeah, because when she got there, she testified it clearly wasn't producers, artists. It was, quote, something else.
Something else, like
They apparently called it Flavor Camp.
flavor camp. What is that?
She had no idea. She said she thought maybe it was some weird industry joke or a quirky branding retreat idea.
Okay, that's bizarre. What were the details she gave about arriving?
Really specific. Phones collected right away, put in these little velvet pouches.
Okay, standard VIP thing, maybe?
Maybe. But then she mentioned a guard at the door. And she stressed it wasn't just security, it was a guard. There's a difference, she testified.
So it's a different tone. Who was there?
Maybe 20 people, she guessed. She recognized some singers, actresses, models, people she described as being on the fringe of big breaks.
And how were they acting?
This was totally normal. This is just what you had to do to level up, her words again.
Wow, okay. And the scene inside?
Very specific description. Sitting on a white sectional couch, the room lit only by candles and aquarium lights.
Aquarium lights.
Yeah. And caviar served on crystal plates. Very atmospheric, I guess.
And then someone mentioned robes.
Right. A girl next to her whispered they'd have to change into robes soon.
And Britney's reaction.
She laughed. She testified she genuinely thought it was like a performance art thing. A bit.
But nobody else laughed.
Nope. Stone faces. And then you saw the masks.
Masks. Okay, this is getting stranger.
Black satin ones. And she made a point to say nothing elegant about them. An assistant handed her one.
Did she put it on?
No. She stated clearly, I did not put it on.
And this led to a really stark statement she made.
Yeah, this is where she said, with no further explanation in the transcript, I shouldn't have seen what I saw that night.
Just left it hanging there.
Exactly. She testified she left early after that, made up an excuse about an early shoot.
And the driver who took her home.
She remembered he didn't make eye contact the whole ride, just stared straight ahead.
That says a lot without saying anything.
Doesn't it? And she testified this night, this experience was the first time she really truly felt that feeling, that deep sensation that I wasn't in control of any of it.
So that seems like a key takeaway from this first event, this flavor camp night.
Absolutely. The alleged immediate intro to control, the secrecy, the weirdness, something totally different from what she expected.
Right. And she claimed after that night, the calls from Combs became more frequent.
Yeah, more often, she said. Invitations started rolling in. Turks and Caicos, Miami, Atlanta.
Always framed as business-related.
Something a business adjacent was her phrase. But, she testified, the business never really showed up.
She called it proximity power games.
Exactly. And she laid out the alleged dynamic very clearly.
Which was?
Saying no meant things went cold. Professionally, doors closed.
But showing up
meant being promised the world, opportunities, connections, the whole deal, which makes you wonder, like, she implied maybe showing up was the business.
That alleged pattern seems reinforced by the next piece of evidence she brought up.
Yeah, a printed email, July 2004, a private appearance agreement.
Signed by who?
One of Sean's people, she said.
And she pointed out a specific clause.
Very specific. It said something like, the participant agrees to maintain confidentiality regarding all events witnessed during hospitality experiences facilitated by Combs Entertainment Group.
Hospitality experiences.
And her reaction in court, reading that, was blunt. She apparently said flat out, that's not normal hospitality experiences.
Did she sign it?
She did. She testified she didn't know what I was signing in terms of the full implications maybe, but she definitely knew what it meant if I didn't.
The pressure was clear.
Yeah. And she also mentioned seeing other young women around during these times.
Younger than her.
Others younger than me, she said. Described them as girls who didn't have lawyers or agents, just hope and fear.
Wow. That adds another layer to the power dynamic she's describing.
For sure. So the insight here from this early document is that she's claiming there was already a written attempt to enforce silence.
Around these hospitality experiences that she alleges weren't really about business at all.
Exactly. Formalizing the silence, maybe?
Yeah.
The testimony then jumps forward. Different location, another specific and really disturbing alleged incident.
When was this?
August 2006, Miami. Right after she finished filming the Gimme More video.
Okay.
She gets invited to Combs' house on Star Island, supposedly low-key just friends.
Just friends, huh? She described the house.
Oh yeah, vivid details again. Marble floors, heavy velvet drapes, these 2 lion statues at the entrance.
And the smell. Seems like she notices smells.
Definitely.
Okay.
This time it was Tom Ford candles and chlorine, and she remembered the pool lights making the water look green at night. She even showed a photo, apparently grainy, time-stamped from that night.
Okay. Set in the scene. How did the night start?
Fine, apparently. Champagne, laughter, Biggie playing. Normal enough.
But then
she said, after midnight, the whole vibe shifted. Got tense. The room tightened, was her word.
And she was upstairs?
In a guest suite. And she heard something. A shout. Not loud, but distressed.
Oof.
She walked down the hall and said the music was echoing strangely through the walls, making everything feel even weirder, more unsettling.
And that's when she saw a door cracked open.
Yeah, a guest room door, lights spilling out, and shadows. Several shadows.
Shadows. Okay. Did she see people?
She mentioned seeing people in masks again, in robes, just like the Manhattanites.
Same thing again. Did she say what was happening?
Yeah. No, she stopped short there, said, I won't go into everything I saw, that's all I'll say. But she did say there was someone there. A girl. Younger than her, she thought. Maybe 18, maybe younger.
And she saw the girl's face.
Just the look in her eyes. That's what she focused on. And then she said, I looked away.
Just looked away. Wow. What was going through her head then?
She described it really clearly, immediately telling herself, I didn't see what I saw, convincing herself it wasn't my business.
That a fear?
Palpable fear based on her testimony, fear of getting cut off professionally if she said anything. She claimed her team had explicitly told her, don't burn bridges with bad boy.
Because you need him on your side.
Exactly, the pressure.
So what did she do?
Left the next morning, told herself to just forget it, bury it.
Which really highlights the pressure she felt to stay silent, right? If her account is accurate.
Absolutely. And it raises that question about the system she later described, how much of it relied on that kind of pressure, that fear of losing everything.
It seems critical, based on her testimony. Did she confront Diddy about it at all?
She testified she actually spoke to him that same night, in the foyer.
And what did he allegedly say?
According to her, he told her, this is how we do it. Brit, don't overthink the art.
He called it art?
That's what she claimed he called it, art.
And her response in court, years later.
Very sharp, very direct, delivered with conviction, the report says. It wasn't art and you knew that.
Wow. Did the pressure stop there?
Yeah.
After that incident?
Not according to her testimony. She claimed that same week she got a call from her lawyer.
About what?
About a compliance package received from Combs' legal team. And it included another confidentiality addendum.
Another one. Anything specific about this one?
Oh, yeah. A bonus cause.
A bonus. For what?
$250,000. Wired straight to her LLC, that's her limited liability company. If she signed it, quote, no questions asked.
$250,000.
Yeah. And her admission in court was stark.
What did she say?
I signed it and I spent the money. Just like that.
And for her, that was a turning point.
That's what she testified. That's when the control started in a much bigger, more pervasive way. More invites, more contracts, more silence expected.
And she brought evidence for this continued pattern.
A printed text log, color-coded from 2007, she read out examples allegedly from his assistant, Antoine.
Like what?
Things like, Jean says come to ATL for the weekend guest room is prepped, or need you at Soho Grand Tuesday private dinner no plus ones.
Doesn't sound like typical public appearances.
No. And she claimed the financial trail supported this. Every time she attended one of these things, a wire transfer would follow days later.
From Combs' company.
From a different LLC each time, she alleged, under vague descriptions like event appearance fee or strategic branding alignment.
Trying to obscure the source or purpose.
That seemed to be her implication, and she made a point about photos, or the lack thereof.
What about photos?
She claimed there was basically no photo evidence from these trips. Said something like, no one ever saw the photos because there weren't any, suggesting they weren't standard promotional gigs.
Gotcha. She mentioned the Atlanta mansion specifically.
Yeah, another vivid memory. White columns, chandeliers with green quartz. And she recalled a butler, Maurice, who never spoke.
Never spoke.
Apparently not. And she claimed she once saw her own reflection crying in the hallway outside the master bedroom, and Maurice just stood there holding a silver tray, didn't react, didn't ask if she was okay.
Just silence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That small detail paints a chilling picture, right, of an environment where distress was maybe seen but just ignored. Part of the wallpaper.
Reinforcing that theme of silence, this pattern continued.
She testified it did, mentioned a trip in 2008, St. Bart's this time.
Okay. Who went?
She claimed she was flown in with a group, included a young R&B singer she said was only 17, and another actress. They stayed at Eden Rock, very high-end place.
And something happened there too.
Allegedly, yes. 2 nights in, one of the other girls tried to leave, said she felt sick, wanted to go home.
Yeah.
Britney claimed she overheard one of Sean's people on the phone saying, handle it quietly, she can't leave until we're done.
Handle it quietly. Wow. What did Britney do?
She admitted it directly in her testimony. Nothing again. I stayed quiet, smiled for the cameras the next morning like nothing happened.
That leads back to her point about the system, doesn't it?
Exactly. She spelled it out right after describing that incident. Quote, you see something, you swallow it, you're rewarded, speak, and you're out.
That sounds like the core mechanism she's alleging.
Yeah.
Access and opportunity traded for silence.
Precisely. And then she presented something really personal.
That's that.
A page from her own journal, described as handwritten note next torn crumpled aged, dated January 2009.
And she read from it.
Yeah. Her voice apparently went kind of even distant reading it. No tears, just flat.
What does it say?
Why do I keep going back? Is this what survival looks like? I feel like I'm disappearing.
Oof. That's heavy.
Yeah.
Captures that internal struggle she must have been feeling.
Totally. The conflict, the cost of staying quiet, even if it meant survival in some sense.
When did things change? Did the invites stop?
Around 2010, she testified, they did start to slow down and then stop. But not because she finally put her foot down and said no.
Why then?
Because, she claimed, she stopped saying yes fast enough, and she started asking too many questions.
Questioning the system. How did Combs allegedly react?
Negatively, according to her, called her difficult, said she'd lost the sparkle.
Lost the sparkle.
Yeah. She even claimed he told someone high up at Sony Music that she was now bad for branding.
Ouch. Discarded for pushing back, essentially.
That's exactly how she framed it. She turned to the jury and asked this really powerful question.
What was it?
Do you know what it feels like to be discarded not for your failures, but for your boundaries?
Wow. Before she moved on from her own experiences, she mentioned something about finances.
Right, one more piece of alleged exploitation. A royalty statement from 2005 highlighted in yellow.
And what did it show?
A deduction. $500,000. $500,000. Labeled simply consulting fee.
Consulting fee. Did she know about this?
She testified never authorized that and never saw a dime of the money itself.
Where did the money allegedly go?
The recipient line, she claimed, was one of Combs' shell companies, Empire Delta Holdings.
Using a shell company again.
Yeah. She called this financial abuse exploitation. And she alleged it was only one of dozens of similar things she found later.
Dozens. Okay. She said she had more evidence but wanted to shift focus.
Exactly. Emails, receipts, photos of the financial stuff. She said she had it. But then she paused and said what she wanted to talk about next was not about me.
And this is where the testimony took a significant turn, right?
Huge turn from her own story to someone else's. Someone she described as the one who disappeared after the Turks and Co's trip in 2011.
Disappeared. That's a heavy word. Did she name the person?
Not immediately. First, she looked directly at Diddy, according to the report, and said, "And you know exactly who I mean."
What was the reaction in the courtroom?
Tension just shot up. Described as sharp suffocating, Diddy's jaw apparently shifted barely, and someone in the gallery, a former backup singer, reportedly lowered her head like she knew exactly who Britney meant.
Then she said the name.
Yes, Amaya, though she added she wasn't even sure if that was her real name.
Okay, so Amaya's story. Turks and Caicos, March 2011. What did she recount?
They were in the Gansevoort penthouse suite. Her, Amaya, 3 other people, and Combs.
Setting the scene again.
Yeah. Postcard resort, champagne flowing, branded gift baskets, sunglasses, bikinis, and, she alleged, pills in a small leather pouch, unmarked, no instructions.
Pills again. Did she take them?
She claimed she didn't touch them, but then she added, chillingly, I don't think Amaya had a choice.
Implying Amaya was forced or pressured.
That was the heavy implication, yes. She described Amaya bright, talented, probably 18 or 19, still had braces, sang like an angel.
Sounds like someone with real potential.
Definitely. But Britney noted Amaya followed every instruction like her life depended on it because, in a way, it did.
What was the purpose of the weekend, according to the testimony? Not a party.
No. She called it something else, a presentation, but not a business pitch. No label reps there.
So who was being presented to?
Guests, described as important ones, some from music, some from finance.
And Amaya's role?
Was, allegedly, clear, told to entertain, to be memorable.
Oh boy. How did it unfold?
It gets very disturbing here. Third night, Britney hears muffled crying from Amaya's room.
She went to check.
Yeah. Found Amaya alone, sitting on the edge of the bed, shaking, mascara running down her face.
What did Amaya say happened?
She didn't really say anything about what happened. Britney described her look as being like a dog that had been beaten too many times.
Oh, God.
Her only response when Britney asked was just, I want to go home. Heartbreaking.
Did Britney try to help her?
She claimed she went to Diddy the next morning, told him Amaya needed help, needed a flight home.
And Diddy's response?
According to her testimony, he smiled and said, don't worry, she's being looked after. This is just part of her journey.
Part of her journey. That sounds dismissive, evasive.
Yeah. And what Britney said next was just ice cold.
What?
I never saw her again.
Never saw Amaya again after that trip.
Gone. She mentioned hearing rumors later, institutionalized, sent overseas, maybe even died, but no death certificate ever found.
Her real name, her contract, vanished.
Allegedly. Just erased, disappeared.
That is profoundly disturbing. The idea that someone to just vanish within this system she's describing.
Right. Did she try to find out what happened?
She testified she did. Called one of his assistants, Jared, a few days later. What did Jared say?
Told her to forget about her, that Amaya had moved on. When Britney pushed back,
Yeah.
he allegedly said, "You're not the kind of girl who wants to ruin her legacy over a random."
Whoa. A threat, basically. Don't ask questions.
That's how it sounds. And she said that was the moment it fully clicked for her.
What clicked?
That this wasn't just isolated incidents, it was, quote, systemized, coordinated. She alleged there were steps, rules, silences, and everyone around him played their part.
So a deliberate system, not just bad behavior. That's a huge claim.
Massive. And she presented evidence she claimed backed this up.
Like what?
An internal memo from a 2010 talent deal. The heading was Project Fusion.
Project Fusion. What was it, according to her?
She called it a grooming pipeline, allegedly funneled young women,
From where?
modeling agencies, small acting circuits, even scouting on Instagram, funneling them into artist development.
For not actual artist development.
Critically, no, not music training, not tour prep, she testified. What it did involve was location shoots, private meetings, luxury networking.
Sounds like what happened to Amaya, potentially.
Exactly. And this whole operation, she claimed, was run through another shell company in Luxembourg.
Luxembourg, again, obscuring things. How does she trace this?
Through emails, financial logs, she said. And she found something specific related to Amaya.
Was it?
A wire transfer. $35,000. Sent to Amaya's family.
Where did they live?
She testified they lived in a trailer park outside Dallas, and the wire was labeled vocational relocation support.
Vocational relocation support for $35,000.
Yeah. And Britney's comment on that payment was just gut-wrenching.
What did she say?
That money didn't save her.
Wow. Okay, so after telling Amaya's story, the testimony shifted again.
Yeah, back inward for a bit, reflecting on her own role, her silence. She talked about blaming herself for years.
For being quiet.
Not just for being quiet, but for surviving when others didn't. That survivor's guilt seems heavy in her account.
She felt used, but differently.
Yeah, she realized her cage had softer walls because she was already famous. But it was still a cage, still control, still being used in her view.
And she claimed Diddy used access as leverage.
Like a weapon, she said. You either played the game or you disappeared. Physically or just spiritually.
Spiritually disappearing. That's a haunting phrase.
Isn't it? She mentioned seeing other women at awards shows smiling on the red carpet.
While allegedly bound by silence.
Yeah, women whose silence rights, she claimed, were owned by you and your people. Directed at Diddy.
Did the judge intervene there?
Briefly. Asked her to keep remarks factual, relevant.
But she pushed back.
Immediately. They are relevant because I'm not the only one in this courtroom who saw it.
Connecting it back to the systemic claim. And then she actually called someone out.
Right then. Turned and directly addressed Anthony Reyes, former Bad Boy tour manager, sitting right there behind the defense.
What did she say to him?
According to the report, she said, "You were there in Turks in that hallway. You saw her," meaning Amaya, and then added, "and you said nothing."
Calling out complicity right there in the courtroom. Why did she say she was naming names?
Because someone has to break the pattern. Someone has to draw the line between what's disturbing and what's criminal. It wasn't just about her story anymore.
Right. It was about accountability for a system. She addressed Diddy again after that.
Yeah, with a really sharp critique. You built an empire on illusion. You sold power like a luxury product, but behind the curtain, it was all control, fear, coercion.
And she talked about the personal cost.
Yeah, being branded unstable when she tried to hint at the truth over the years. Her pain turned into a headline. But now, I'm done carrying this alone. And that's when she produced the flash drive.
The black flash drive. What did she claim was on it?
Audio files, conversations, recordings she apparently made herself on her phone.
Recordings of Diddy?
Seems so. Hotel rooms from car rides from studios. She said Diddy had said so many things, Sean, things you didn't think anyone would ever hear again.
Wow. Is she planning to release them?
She basically put it out there as leverage. I'll play them if I have to, but I'm hoping I won't need to. Then she just sat back, let that sink in.
The weight of that threat must have been immense in the room.
You have to imagine. The silence afterwards was apparently palpable. Then she spoke again, her voice quieter now, described as low and flat.
What did she say?
I disappeared too, she said. Not physically, but in every other way.
Connecting her own experience back to Amaya's disappearance.
Exactly. She claimed breaking away from his orbit, his alleged control, cost her everything.
Like what? What did she lose?
Her sense of reality, my sense of time, said she'd wake up in hotels and literally forget what city I was in.
That sounds like dissociation, maybe?
Yeah.
A trauma response?
Could be. And she made a really specific, damning point about her security team during that time.
What was it?
They were there 24/7, she said, but none of them ever protected me. They protected the image, the illusion that I was okay.
Protecting the brand, not the person.
That was her claim. Starkly put, I wasn't okay. And she offered proof.
More evidence.
A photocopy of a prescription label, lorazepam, for panic attacks, dated January 2012. The dosage was doubled by April of that same year. She just placed it down like another piece of evidence.
Tangible proof of the toll it was taking. How else did it affect her life?
She said she basically stopped leaving the house, except for rehearsals, had a closet full of expensive dresses for events she never went to.
And she shared some really specific triggers. Trauma triggers.
Incredibly specific, like sitting in the bathtub listening to an old playlist. Diddy made her side, Marvin Gaye, The Weeknd, over and over. Same 3 songs on repeat.
Wow. And a smell trigger, too. Like the candles.
Yeah, another candle scent he used to burn. Barreto Bibliothèque. She claimed she now can't walk past a department store without getting dizzy from the scent.
That really drives home her point about trauma, doesn't it?
Absolutely. She explained it so clearly. That's how trauma works. It hides in the things that used to comfort you. Makes it very real for anyone listening.
Did she describe a breaking point?
Yeah, 2013. During rehearsals for her Vegas residency, a full-blown episode, she called it, collapsed, hyperventilating.
What kind of help did she get?
This is interesting. Instead of, say, intensive therapy, she testified she was flown to a wellness retreat. But here's the kicker. She claimed this retreat was partially funded by a production company that Combs himself had invested in.
Seriously. So sending her to a place connected to him.
That's the allegation. And she described the retreat as a place where women were basically taught to smile through their damage. Not real healing, in her view.
Wow. That sounds insidious, if true. Did she talk about her mental state getting worse?
Yeah. She admitted that in late 2014, she reached a point where she seriously thought about ending it.
Oh, God.
And she framed it not just as personal pain, but as the result of the system. It's not about regret. It's about what happens when silence curdles into sickness.
Silence curls into sickness. Powerful image.
Yeah. And her critique tied it all together. You don't get to claim someone's career body voice and then discard the parts you don't find useful anymore.
Aimed squarely at Combs and the industry that allegedly let it happen.
But that's what Sean did. That's what the industry let him do. Then she brought up the NDAs again.
The non-disclosure agreements? How many?
So many NDAs, she said. Estimated at least 9 between 2004 and 2010.
Were they obvious NDAs?
Not always, she claimed. Sometimes hidden in brand contracts, sometimes just enforced with verbal threats.
And she remembered a specific clause.
One she said she'd never forget. It apparently stated, "Participant shall not disclose any behaviors or events that might compromise the public image of Mr. Combs or any of his business entities, regardless of perceived legality."
Regardless of perceived legality, that phrase stands out.
It did in the courtroom, too, apparently. It was repeated, highlighted, because it basically says, keep quiet even if you think something illegal happened.
That's bold. Did she show these NDAs?
She presented a stack of documents. Small, thick stack, secured with a black clip. Scanned copies, summaries, she said, but claimed they showed a clear pattern of coercion.
Language designed to shut people down.
Language designed to erase accountability, she testified. Made her feel like she was the problem if she ever spoke up.
That sounds like classic manipulation tactic, right? Make the victim feel responsible.
Exactly. She mentioned the other women again, too.
The ones involved in these situations.
Yeah. Some who built careers, she said. Some who never made it past the first flight to New York. She stated she wouldn't name them, though.
Why not?
Not ready yet. But then she looked right at Diddy again and said, "But I think you know who I'm talking about." Really pointed.
Did she share any other specific quotes or moments illustrating this alleged control?
Yes. She recounted Diddy allegedly saying something to another young woman right in front of Britney.
What was the quote?
"You ain't gotta sing to be a star, you just gotta obey," said with a smile like a joke, she testified. But then he apparently added, "It's obedience or obscurity, pick one."
Obedience or obscurity, pick one. That's stark.
In Britney's response in court, "I picked obscurity and I still almost didn't make it out," underscores the stakes she felt were involved. Even choosing obscurity wasn't safe.
So she circled back to why she stayed silent for so long, beyond the NDAs and threats.
Yeah, the self-blame again. Thinking it was somehow her fault, that she played a part. smiled too much, dressed wrong, said yes too easily.
But she realized that was part of the manipulation.
Yes. That was the point, she testified, to make me believe I chose the cage. That's how you make someone live with it, making the victim complicit in their own silence.
So what were the main reasons she gave for not speaking sooner?
Didn't think anyone would believe her. The machine was too big, too powerful. And this really interesting point,
Why?
that she felt she'd been trained since I was 15 to perform my pain in a way that made it entertaining.
Wow. Like her trauma was commodified by the industry.
That seems to be the implication. And she claimed Combs knew this and used it. You knew that you weaponized my survival instinct against me.
Weaponized her survival instinct. Heavy stuff. What happened when she finally stopped playing along?
Consequences were swift, she alleged. He made sure the doors closed.
Professionally.
Yeah. Phone calls stopped, album delays, songwriters pulled from her projects. She even quoted a producer. Basically, it's above me now. I can't work with you if Sean's out. Showing the alleged reach of his influence.
So it wasn't just direct interaction, but influencing the whole industry around her.
That's the claim. She ended that part of her testimony with a message, really.
To who?
To others who might have gone through something similar or might still be in it. I'm not the only one. There are more, and I think after this they'll come. Adding, I hope they do.
A call for others to speak out too.
Yeah. And her final statement from the stand that day? Absolutely electric, apparently.
What was it?
I spent over a decade thinking I had no power. But sitting here today, I realize I have something you never did, Sean. I have nothing left to lose, and that's where the truth lives.
Nothing left to lose. That's powerful.
And the very last thing she said, before court recessed for the day.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, I'll show you what survival really looks like.
Cliffhanger.
Wow. Okay, so when testimony resumed the next day, what was the focus?
It felt like shifting from victim testimony to something else. A reckoning, maybe? Stated purpose was clear. Which was?
I'm not here today because I want revenge, she said, but because I want recognition of what happened, of what was done not just to me, but to dozens, maybe hundreds of people who never got to sit here.
Shifting the focus to the broader impact, the other alleged victims.
Exactly. And she directly addressed the idea that maybe the perks balanced out the bad stuff.
The luxury, the access.
Yeah, she shot that down hard. So those things don't balance out the rest. The fear, the control, the silence, flatly stated, it doesn't.
Then she brought out one last piece of paper.
The letter. Amaya's letter, the one she found in the storage unit back in 2019.
With the demo tapes and the rosary.
Right. She read it aloud again.
Can you read it?
To whoever finds this, I wanted to be a star. I didn't know that meant disappearing. If you're reading this, it means you cared enough to look for me. Thank you. Please don't let them forget me.
Oh, man. Just devastating.
So simple, so powerful. Britney said she'd carried it for 5 years, not knowing why, but now she did.
What was the purpose, she felt?
It's not a goodbye. It's a warning. That Amaya's story was a warning about the system.
And she critiqued that system again.
Oh, yeah. Said Combs didn't just hurt us, it taught others how to do the same. Accused him of having franchised abuse wrapped it in velvet ropes and champagne flutes.
Franchised abuse. Strong language.
And she specified what he allegedly taught the industry. How to make consent blurry, how to monetize obedience, and how to make rebellion look like instability.
There was an objection there.
Yeah, but it was overruled. She got to finish the thought.
She talked about her own healing process.
Said she used to think speaking up meant losing everything, but she realized she'd already lost it, piece by piece, year after year. Now she was rebuilding. And testifying, this is part of it.
Part of taking her power back.
Yeah.
Did she mention working with investigators?
Yes. Cooperating with federal investigators. Provided over 70 hours of recordings, wire transfers, names, coordinated timelines with other women.
70 hours of recordings. That's significant. Did she indicate others were ready to talk?
She pointed to women in the courtroom, former dancers, assistants, a makeup artist, and said, some of them are here because they're ready to speak too.
Suggesting her testimony might just be the beginning.
That was the clear implication. And she had a direct message for anyone still caught in that alleged system.
What was it?
Basically, the silence and compliance won't protect you. It won't protect you, and it never will, but your truth might save someone else.
Wow. And her final words were to Combs.
One last time, facing him directly, she quoted his alleged words back at him. Everyone plays the game. Brit, the ones who win are the ones who keep their mouths shut.
And her response?
Simple and definitive. Well, I'm not playing anymore.
Mic drop. How did the day end, according to the source?
It sounds like a really powerful moment. Brittany stood up from the witness stand. The report specifically notes her hands were no longer trembled, her folder was empty, she'd said her piece.
And the other women?
As she stepped down, some of those other women she'd mentioned sitting in the back, they stood up too, silently.
A show of solidarity.
Yeah. The report frames it not just as the end of her testimony, but maybe the end of a reign built on silence and the beginning of something else, a reckoning, a release, a record corrected.
And Diddy's reaction.
Motionless, apparently, as the judge adjourned.
How did Britney leave?
The description was striking. Not as a pop icon, not as a victim, but as something else entirely, a witness, a survivor, and a catalyst for what would come next.
A catalyst. Okay. So let's recap for you. We've just walked through some incredibly intense, detailed testimony, as reported by Inner City Press.
Yeah, we followed the narrative she laid out, the alleged pattern of control starting early on, those specific incidents he described.
The Manhattan Penthouse Flavor Camp, the Star Island House incident, the St. Bart's trip.
Right, plus the alleged financial manipulations, the NDAs, the claimed grooming pipeline called Project Fusion.
And of course, the absolutely devastating story of Amaya, the young woman who allegedly disappeared, all presented under oath by this witness.
And just to stress it one more time, we've presented these claims and details exactly as they appeared in our source transcript. This is what Britney Spears alleged in court.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, stepping back a bit. This deep dive into just one person's testimony. It cracks open a window, doesn't it?
For sure, a window into these huge questions about power dynamics, especially in industries like entertainment, about silence, coercion.
The systems that allegedly protect powerful people and the unbelievable personal costs for those who experience it and then find the courage to speak out.
Yeah, and remember how her testimony ended that first day, that line, and tomorrow I'll show you what survival really looks like.
Right. So building on everything you've heard from the source material, what does it mean to survive a system like the one you described?
A system allegedly built on control, on silence, on exploitation. What does survival even look like in that context?
And maybe even more profoundly, what does it take to then break that silence, stand up in a place like a federal courtroom, and start to redefine power entirely on your own terms?
Definitely something heavy to think about as you process all of this.